Hi, I'm Rob from B&H, and in this video we're going to take a look at Novation's impulse controller keyboards. These keyboards give you full-size, semi-weighted keys with a solid playing feel. In addition, they feature faders, rotary encoders, and transport buttons for tactile control over your digital audio workstation and plugins. They also feature trigger pads for drums, samples, and clips. So while they don't generate sounds themselves, if you're making music with a computer, you'll spend less time moving a mouse around and more time actually on the keyboard, playing MIDI and virtual instruments and enjoying tactile control over many functions in your DAW. With a 25-key version, a 49-key version, and a 61-key version, you can choose the impulse that works best for your needs. Let's start with the smallest model, the Impulse 25, and then take a quick look at the larger versions. All the Impulse keyboards send MIDI information to your Mac or PC via the USB 2.0 port, which also powers the keyboard. No AC cables necessary. There are also standard 5-pin MIDI ports on the back so you can play other MIDI instruments. You don't necessarily need a computer if you're only using the MIDI ports. You'll just need to pick up a separate AC to DC converter for USB devices. All the Impulse keyboards feature inputs on the back for sustain and expression pedals, and the chassis is plastic, not the most rugged build perhaps, but it does help keep the weight down when you're taking your Impulse on the road. Obviously the keys are an important part of a keyboard, and the Impulses all feature semi-weighted keys. Not only is the keyboard velocity sensitive, it also has aftertouch, meaning that if you increase the pressure while you're holding the notes, the keyboard senses it and sends out aftertouch MIDI data. This virtual synth, for example, responds to aftertouch with an LFO. The 2-octave range is a bit limiting for some playing styles, but you can expand the range with these transpose buttons to get to additional octaves, and the small size makes it the most portable model in the Impulse line. The Impulse keyboards also feature 8 tricolor drum pads that are velocity sensitive and respond to aftertouch. That's especially handy when you're using the pads in roll mode. Applying a little aftertouch gives your drum roll a little volume crescendo. You can also use the pads to trigger clips and scenes in Ableton Live, and the pads light up in 3 different colors to indicate the status of the clip. Amber means your clip is loaded, green means the clip is playing, and red means you're recording. The pads also allow you to improvise patterns on the Arpeggiator, which we'll talk about shortly. The Impulses ship with Ableton Live Lite, but you can use other DAWs if you prefer. In addition to Live, we tested it out with Logic, and it worked really well for us. You can use one of the 20 already mapped templates or the included AutoMap software that works with your DAW to map the controls. Setup with AutoMap is a fairly straightforward affair. The software guides you through the setup process on the DAW of your choice, which makes it pretty easy. In the middle here, above the keyboard, is our transport control. Forward, rewind, play, and record buttons are all right here, meaning you don't have to move away from your keyboard to go to different places in the song. In addition to the transport controls, there are also 8 endless rotary knobs on the Impulse that you can use to control not only functions on the DAW, but third-party plugins as well. The knobs have a speed-dependent resolution, so you can turn the knob fast to get near the setting you want and then slow down for fine adjustments. By using AutoMap, the encoding knob will already be set to make changes on the plugin you have selected. So for example, I'm using them to control parameters on the ambient instrument plugin in Ableton. The 8 controller knobs are auto-mapped to the instrument's 8 macro controls. I just have to start dialing in changes. The LCD screen will tell you what parameter the controller is assigned to if you're unsure. So here, the first encoder gives me control over the LFO amount, the second knob is a tone control, and 5 and 6 here are frequency and resonance controls for the filter. You can reassign them if you want, but the great thing about auto mapping is that it usually puts the controls in a very logical place, minimizing the amount of reassignment necessary. In addition to plugins, you can also use the encoders to control parameters on the DAW itself by hitting the plugin and MIDI buttons here at the same time, putting us in mixer mode. In Ableton, for example, the encoders are auto-mapped to control panning settings, but you can make them control effect sends or other controls if you prefer. Now earlier I mentioned the Arpeggiator. This is a powerful and cool feature on the Impulse. When you engage it, you get an 8-step arpeggiator that you can control with the trigger pads. The pads light up green to indicate a step in the sequence is triggering. Hit a pad and it lights up red, indicating that step is now off. Hit it again to turn the step back on, and the harder I hit the pad, the louder that step will be in the sequence. There are additional controls available. You can change the clock rate, the length of the arpeggiator, gate time, and the swing. The Impulse 25 is certainly the most portable of the models, but you may need more than 2 octaves, so if that's the case, consider the Impulse 49 or the Impulse 61. These both have all the features from the 25, but the 49 gives you a 4-octave keyboard, while the 61 gives you 5 octaves. But they also have more faders. The Impulse 25 comes with only 1 fader to work with, but these larger models have additional real estate for 9 faders that can be either set to send MIDI data or control tracks in your DAW. No more giving yourself hand cramps trying to do complicated level rides with a mouse. Now you have faders for that. Below each fader is a button that can be used either to mute or solo a track. You toggle between the modes with this button. The light on each button glows a little dimmer when you mute a track and a little brighter when you solo. Other than the additional faders and the mute solo buttons, all the other features we saw on the Impulse 25 are on board with the 49 and 61 models, the 8 encoder knobs, the 8 drum pads, the arpeggiator, LCD screen, and auto mapping. So hopefully that gives you a reasonable overview of the Impulse 25, 49, and 61 key controllers from Novation. 3 solid keyboard controllers with a wealth of great features to help make creating music with computers feel less like programming and more like playing and performing. I'm Rob from B&H, and thanks for watching.
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.